Good evening. I have a subject here that I want to talk about. But I have quite a bit of questions, so I'm hoping to have some discussion because I have some questions, but I don't have all the answers for them. So hopefully we can have some discussion tonight. The devotional, I thought, was a fairly good introduction to this because I am going to be speaking some about trust, and we consider God being our friend and us trusting God. So I just thought that was a fairly good introduction. So I guess my first question is, where is your trust? Now, I don't expect you to answer this one, but where is your trust? Is it in God? Is it in wealth? Is it in the government? Maybe military power, yourself, etc. Just consider, where is your trust and what are you trusting in? So maybe the next question is it important to trust God? Yes, I believe it's important to trust God. So the next question is why? Why is it important to trust God? And I'd like to hear some thoughts on this. What are some reasons or that we would have to believe that it's important to trust God?
I think trusting God helps us to realize our own limitations. It helps us to trust God by realizing our limitations.
For example, God knows everything. I don't.
One of the thoughts I had was if we don't trust God, I believe we're exalting ourselves above God because we think our ways are better than His. Because if I have a lack of trust for God, I'm probably basing that off of my own ideas or following my own reasoning. And if I do that, I'm actually exalting myself above God. Another reason, if we don't trust Him for salvation, obviously we won't be spending eternity with Him either. So another important reason. And if we don't trust God, we'll be always having this feeling of suspicion that God doesn't have my best interest in mind. And if trust is lacking, that's what's going to happen. I'm going to feel that God is going against me, or that He may have ulterior motives. Just an interesting fact, in the King James Version, the word trust, is used 135 times. 108 of those are in the Old Testament and 27 in the New. Now, obviously, not all of those have the same meaning as in trust in God. Paul used trust quite frequently as he trusts that this or that will come to pass. Proverbs 3:5 says, "Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding." So I guess the next question I would like to have some discussion on is, if we never had, or if we have lost trust in God, what are some ways that we can gain/regain that trust? If we're struggling trusting God, what are some ways that we can regain that trust.
Find somebody you trust and they can help you.
Find somebody that you can trust and they can help you. That would definitely be a good starting point. Any other thoughts?
Read the Bible. Faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God.
Read the Word. That was definitely one of my points as well. Anyone else?
I would say cry out to God in prayer.
Pray to God. One of my thoughts was spend time studying His promises. And that would definitely go along with reading the Word and praying as well. But study the promises that He has laid out in the Bible and the many times that He fulfilled those promises and continues to do that. Another thought was give God a chance to prove Himself. In other words, trust God. Give him a chance to prove Himself to you. Psalm 37, verse 3 says, "Trust in the Lord and do good. So shalt thou dwell in the land, and verily thou shalt be fed." In verse 5, "Commit thy way unto the Lord, trust also in Him, and He shall bring it to pass." So, yeah, right along with giving God a chance is those verses. Commit thy way unto the Lord, trust also in Him, and He shall bring it to pass. So, along with what Cheryl said about finding someone that you can trust into, another thought that I had, or another question that I had, if we struggle trusting God, will we struggle trusting people? And if we're struggling trusting God and we're struggling trusting people, that might be a little hard to find someone that we can trust. But that is still a very valid thought. Or it could be the other way around as well. If we're struggling to trust people, we might also struggle to trust God. So moving on, I would like to think a little bit about, we're talking about trusting God. I'd like to bring that down to trusting amongst ourselves, among people. So I guess the next question I have, is it important to trust others, other people that we come in contact with? Is it important? I would guess we all would agree that, yes, it is important. And then again, my next question is, why is it important to trust others? Anyone have any thoughts on that?
I don't think we can get away from at least an element of trust. There's some that you will trust more than others because of past experiences. But you're saying, is it important and why is it important? I don't think we can do life without it. I don't know if that's the answer you're looking for or not.
I don't necessarily have a right answer that I'm looking for, but yes, I think we agree that it is important. And yeah, I was just looking for some reasons why it is important. And obviously, yes, like you said, we can't really live life without at least some trust.
For the person person who lives without trusting others, it's a life of suspicions and paranoia, and that is the absence of peace. I mean, that takes peace. There's no peace in suspicions and paranoia, and so we trust people, and there's an element of peace that goes with it as far as doing life.
I was thinking of asking, would I like to be trusted? And in that case, if the answer is yes, should I return the favor? What others you have been doing to you? But then I wondered, is the focus, is that necessarily the focus? Or more of the focus would be, am I trustworthy? When you trust God, and are seeking to be trustworthy yourself, yes, you can function by trusting other people, but you need to give it that much to be able to be that concerned about.
Is there a strong connection between trust and faith when it comes to God? I mean, God said without faith it's impossible to please Him. So I think our trust in Him is fairly closely connected with our faith. I think we have to come to grips with God's plan is long term. And the things that happen to us, a lot of them are short-term things that maybe breaks our trust. I mean, there's things that God allows to come into our lives that are disappointments. That's kind of what I'm thinking about short-term things, disappointments that we face. So we have to have the confidence that God's plan is long-term for our good. He uses these short-term things to help purify and strengthen us.
I think, yeah, there's some areas where trust and faith really can't be separated individually. I think they go hand in hand.
Question that came to my mind: if we're fully trusting God, how can we not trust others? Or is that possible? To fully trust God, but yet, like Keith talked about, live in fear of men around us. Do the two mix, or?
That is a very good thought. I didn't think about it that way, but I think you're right. If we're completely trusting God, I would guess you'll have at least some element of trust for other people as well. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe someone has some thoughts on that as well.
You can't trust somebody to see, how you trust somebody you can't see.
Because the one we can't see has never let us down. People do. I mean, even at best, people do disappoint us at times. Some will not purposely, but we're not perfect. We do let people down sometimes.
Along with that, who did Daniel have to trust when he was walking toward the lion's den or being buried? Who did some of the other characters as well? Who did Joseph have to trust when he was in prison? Which people could he trust? Who did Jesus have to trust when they all forsook him and fled?
Yeah, very good. That who can we trust? Or who do we trust? Very good.
So somewhere, as the conversation was going on, I was considering, there's an organization around Fraud Alert. I don't know if you're familiar with that. We need to trust, but we daren't be gullible. Those scammers are getting more and more deceptive. Well, like with AI, we were just talking the other day, our voices are on YouTube. People can use my voice and make me say things that I didn't say. So I told my mom, if anyone ever calls her and needs money, one of your grandchildren or something, hang up and call their number or their dad's number. Don't ever give a credit card over the phone for your grandchildren. It's just the way it is. It can sound like a grandchild. Anyhow, so I don't know if you were going there or not, but we can't not trust, but we need to be careful.
And that was one of my things, is how do we balance that out? How do we know who to trust or how far to trust them? And I don't know that I have a answer for that.
If you fully trust God, you won't trust that He'll give you the wisdom to know how much trust you can have in a person.
Very good. Yes, I believe he will.
Even if someone takes advantage of you or tricks you somehow, could that go back to some of those little disappointments I mentioned a few minutes ago? If you could ask a fruit tree, or especially a grapevine, about disappointments, clip them, clip them, clip them. What's that? Not much. But what results?
Very good. So one of my thoughts was, when I'm thinking about if it's important to trust others, is if I don't trust others, I'll probably be over controlling, because if I don't trust anyone, I'm going to need to be in control, because I could get hurt if I'm not. And being over controlling leads to other problems as well. And if I don't trust others, I'll probably feel that like everyone else is against me. If I don't trust that you as a brotherhood have my good in mind, I'm probably going to feel like I'm going to be suspicious that you're not. You might be doing things that could harm me or whatever. And that goes a lot further in brotherhood as well. So if trust is lacking, is it my fault or is it the other's fault? Or is it none of us our fault? Or is it always the other person's fault?
Can be both.
Can't be at the same time. My thought would be yes, it can be at the same time, but maybe you have a different thought on that. But
You can trust someone who's lazy, but does that help get the job done? But on the other hand, is over-controlling them going to help too much either?
I think my personal feeling is it goes back to what you had mentioned earlier, David, about being trustworthy. I think if we're too focused on if the other person's fault or whatever, that I can't trust them, I think that's the wrong focus. Am I trustworthy, and am I willing to extend trust to others? And it was mentioned about past experiences affecting how we trust others. I just lost my thought, but I think that goes back to extending trust. Sometimes it's hard for some people to extend trust because of past experiences. But I think we must step out of that and at least some level of trust to others. Now, I know there's situations where someone may have been hurt by someone, and I don't know where that level of trust should stop for someone like that, but or where it should even start. But anyway, some people find it hard to trust others because of past experiences. I guess my question was, what are some ways that someone like that can overcome that fear, or that, I guess it'd be a fear of extending trust to others?
Well, again, it's probably a two-sided thing, but trust has to be built. You can't buy it, it's not handed to you. It has to be built step by step. If somebody breaks that trust, it's going to be fragile if it gets rebuilt.
I would say, you said earlier about giving God a chance to prove himself. I think the same idea would apply here. Giving the person a chance to prove himself.
I was kind of wondering about the statement, giving God a chance. God has proven himself. We just have to feed on that. God has proven himself.
Maybe that's not a very good wording there, but
I really like the phrase, but
no, thank you for pointing that out. Yes, God has proven himself. It's just that we need to feed on that. I wholeheartedly agree with that.
Well, man robbed God, and you robbed me. You say, wherein have we robbed you? The tithes and offerings. You are cursed with a curse, for you have robbed me, even this whole nation. Bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be meat in mine house. And prove me now herewith, saith the Lord of hosts, if I will not open to you the windows of heaven, and pour you out a blessing, that there shall not be room enough to receive it. And I will rebuke the devourer for your sakes, and he shall not destroy the fruits of your ground, neither shall your vine cast her fruit before the time in the field, saith the Lord of hosts.
so it's a little bit of not allowing God to prove himself, is that what you're saying?
I don't know if that's the most helpful way to describe it, but it seems so. But that was a challenge you gave to the people.
Personally, God will prove
Yes.
himself to us.
I guess my thoughts went to, when I was considering that question, was maybe remembering what God has put entrusted us to, or placed in our trust. God placed in our trust as failing humans, or prone to fail, the gospel. The gospel itself is placed into men's hands, and we are prone to fail. If God has extended that trust to us, how can we not extend at least some level of trust to those around us? And so a couple verses that I thought went along with that was 1 Thessalonians 2:4 says, "But as we were allowed of God to be put in trust with the gospel, even so we speak, not as pleasing men, but God, which trieth our hearts." Paul acknowledged that the gospel was entrusted to him. And 1 Timothy 1:11. "According to the glorious gospel of the blessed God, which was committed to my trust." So God has entrusted us with the gospel, or the good news, and to spread that. So I think when we consider that, I think we should at least extend some level of trust to those around us. And where that trust, how far that trust should go, I don't know, because every situation is different. But I think we need to be careful, because if we don't trust, it cuts out some vital things in our lives. If we don't trust others, it will prevent others from speaking into my life, because if they try to, I won't take it because I don't trust them. And if I don't trust, it will harm relationships, because relationships where trust is lacking don't function properly. Any other thoughts on trust, or trusting God, or trusting others? If not, in closing, I'm going to read 2 Corinthians 1:8-10. "For we would not, brethren, have you ignorant of our trouble which came to us in Asia, that we were pressed out of measure above strength, insomuch that we despaired even of life. But we had the sentence of death in ourselves, that we should not trust in ourselves, but in God which raiseth the dead, who delivered us from so great a death, and doth deliver, in whom we trust that he will yet deliver us." So Paul was telling about their troubles that they had, but he wasn't trusting in himself. He was trusting in God, and that would be my encouragement to you: is trust God, and in turn trust those that God has placed into your lives. So with those thoughts, that's everything I have.